Good evening, all. I'm Shane Nolan with Left Field, the owner's project manager for the new Wakefield Memorial High School. Just wanted to welcome everybody tonight to our public forum number 2. We've been working over the last couple of months since the last forum to complete our team. We recently brought our firm of designers on tonight, and we will be introducing them to you. We've started to meet with the school department, continued to meet with the school building committee and the town, and we're now moving into the feasibility stage of the Wakefield Memorial High School project. So with that, we have on tonight, just wanted to introduce a couple of other people before we start. We do have Joe Bertrand, chairman of the permanent building committee and the school building committee. We also have Doug Lyons, who's the superintendent of schools. And we have Tim O'Brien, who's the facilities director with Wakefield Public Schools, and I'm not sure if Amy McLeod is on the principal of the Wakefield Memorial High School. So with that, we'll get going with our presentation. Just Doug or Joe, did you have anything to say before we start? No. Okay. So we have some slides to show you where we are with building the team. We also have some slides that will show you the process with MSBA. And we're going to talk a little bit about the feasibility study and the educational programming and visioning that we'll do over the next couple of months. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the schedule. So if we can hold questions until after we're finished the presentation, we'll open it up to question and answers after we've gone through our slides tonight. So starting off, we'd just like to introduce ourselves. Left Field, we've met a number of people already. We've met people at permanent building committee meetings and at the previous public forum. Jim Rogers is our principal in charge. Jim oversees all projects the Left Field do. Lynn Stapleton, who's on tonight, is our project director. Lynn will be working day to day on the project, and she has worked in Wakefield before, so she has previous experience with the town and with the team in Wakefield. I'm Shane Nolan. I'm the senior project manager. I'll be day to day on the project throughout. We also have Linda Laporto, who's a senior project manager with Left Field, who will be involved in the background with a lot of the design and the pre-construction work initially, and then we get into construction. And then we also have a team who will filter in and out as we need them. Mark will be our site representative when we get to construction, probably a couple of years from now. Jay Faxon is an ME specialist with Left Field. He'll be involved throughout the design, doing design reviews, talking to the engineers, talking to facilities, making sure the systems are correctly designed for your new high school. We have Matt Casey, who's a civil and structural specialist, who will be involved in certain design meetings and design reviews. And also Adam Kane, who's a utilities specialist, and will be involved with a lot of the civil and site stuff when we get into that design. With that, I'll hand it over to SMMA and Lorraine Finnegan to introduce her team.
Good evening. Welcome. Delighted to be in front of you tonight. I'm going to let our team introduce themselves so you get to see their face, but I am Lorraine Finnegan, and I will be the principal in charge for the design team from SMMA.
Good evening. I'm Helen Fantini, and I'm a project manager with SMMA.
My name is Matt Rice. I'm a project architect with SMMA.
Hi, I'm Erin Prostilio, civil engineer at SMMA.
Bill Poinelli, educational planner with SMMA.
Martine Dion, Director of Sustainable Design with SMMA.
We do have a couple more faces on the screen. David Stevens, who will be integral to our visioning process that we'll talk about, and Andy Olderman, our HVAC engineer, and Michael Pardak, one of our architects who had worked on the interview, excuse me. One of the things we are going to show you tonight are some of the concepts that we introduced through the proposal and interview stage. And one thing I'd just like to make really clear is these were initial concepts that SMMA undertook without any involvement from the town of Wakefield. Again, this is just us reading through your RFS and understanding from being in attendance virtually at some of your building committee meetings what your goals are. These are by no means the options we're going to say that are the only options for the project. We're going to start to evolve and develop and expand options as we start to meet with you and meet with the community, meet with the school community, and really understand what the goals and the needs and the priorities are. but we thought it would be nice tonight just to show you what we had shown to the building committee, and how, you know, what our thought process is, and take you through some of that thought process as we move forward. Next slide, Shane.
Thank you, Lorraine. So we did talk a little bit about the MSBA process. For those of you who don't know what the MSBA is the Mass Schools Building Authority. They're partnering with Wakefield on this new high school project, and they will reimburse certain project costs as we go through it. There'll be more of that as we get into the study and the schematic design. But the MSBA is a state agency who is partnering with the town to assist in the funding of this new high school for Wakefield. They have a very prescribed process. We must follow their rules and regulations. The town has been working with MSBA, I think, probably for 18 months or probably 2 years now, to get to this point where they've been admitted to the core program, as they call it, which is to the beginning with the feasibility study and the schematic design, which we are now embarking on. Under the feasibility study, there's 2 submissions we must make to the state. We'll work with the school department, work with our designers, work with the building committee, and work with the public as we go through these studies. And before they're submitted to MSBA, we'll make sure that the public is aware of what we've done, what we've looked at, the decisions we've made, and why we made those decisions. The first of those submissions is called the Preliminary Design Program, the PDP. That's really an information gathering process. That's when we'll go, we'll look at the existing school, we'll look at the existing site, we'll gather information on the existing systems, and we'll put together what you have in Wakefield right now, report that back to the School Building Authority, all the existing conditions there. We'll also start to look at some different design options, and I'll show you some of those on the next slide. That's when we start to look at, renovation addition, new build, and all the options that we can go through. Following that submission, we go into the preferred schematic report. That will get more detailed on some of the options that we decide to continue with investigating and examining. That would be the
recording stopped.
That would be the second submission to MSBA. After that preferred schematic report is submitted to MSBA, we must go to their board to get approval to move into the third phase of the feasibility study, which is the schematic design. The schematic design is what we'll look at a single alternative. That will be the school that we're proposing to the state, the school that we're proposing to the town. And after the schematic design, that's when we go to the MSBA board again for their support, and we'll also go to the town to look for funding for the full project. So those are the 3 phases we're going through now. After we do the schematic design, as I said, we will go to the town to approve the entire project, and after that, if the town is supported and approved by the town, we'll get into full design and construction. This is just a kind of a graphic of those 3 submissions we'll do to the MSBA through the feasibility study. You can see here, starting on the left, the PDP, as I said, the preliminary design program. We illustrate 6 boxes here. Those are the options we're going to look at: renovation, renovation addition, new construction, on various locations throughout the high school site. I show 6 here. It may, in fact, be 10 or 12. It certainly will be more than 6, but just for illustration purposes, we show a number of options there in the PDP. Coming out of that PDP, as I said, we'll then reduce those options. We'll pick options that we want to further investigate. Some will become clear that they're not feasible and there's no need to investigate them anymore. Some will probably stand out for being beneficial and good options, and we want to investigate those a little bit more. So as we go into PSR, the preferred schematic report, we'll reduce the number of options, but we'll examine those and go into more detail on those options. So again, I show 3 here. That may be 4, it may be 5, but it'll be a number of options that we look at in PSR. Coming out of the PSR, preferred schematic report, as I said, we go to the MSBA board. One of the things coming out of PSR is we have to make a recommendation of a single option. So having reviewed those finalists, if you want to call them, we will pick one option that we want to move forward into schematic design. MSBA will only allow us to move into schematic design with one option. So we will have to look at that in detail. We'll have to go to the MSBA board, get approval for that. We'll get approval through the permanent building committee and the school building committee to do that. And we'll go into schematic design, which is more detailed design. At the end of schematic, we will have one option that will be brought to the town for approval for the entire project for the design and construction. Lorraine, did you have anything to add?
Nope, I think that's great. Thanks, Shane.
Okay. So I'll hand it back to Lorraine to talk a little bit about the visioning and the educational program.
Sure. Thanks, Shane. So Phil and I are going to tag team on this, but just to kick off the project, we have a lot of data gathering to do as part of the existing conditions, and you know, that's fairly rudimentary, and our team of architects and engineers will be out through Wakefield Memorial High School, both the building and the site, understanding what you have for spaces, what's the condition, what are the soils like, where are the wetland delineations, all the important information that we need in order to start our development of alternatives, and those are design options. Concurrent to that, we start a process called visioning, where we start looking at blue sky thinking. You know, what do we want for the new Wakefield Memorial High School? And when I say the new Wakefield Memorial High School, I am not suggesting that it is a new building at this time. I'm just suggesting it is a re-envisioned Wakefield Memorial High School. So we work with David Stephen, our visioning educational planner, and Phil Poinelli, who's our in-house educational planner, and work with the leadership at the school, the teachers, students, and the community to really look at what we want for the future of Wakefield Memorial High School. What should that educational program be, and how will it manifest itself in the design options that come forth? So there's a lot of planning that's going to go on over the next 2 months, a lot of meetings, a lot of workshops, some hybrid, some in person, some virtual, a combination of all three, to try and make sure that we can hear as many voices as possible and really understand where everybody's coming from and how those needs can manifest themselves through an educational plan, which eventually turns into the program and the summary of spaces, as we call it. What are the key spaces we need in the building, to propose that to the MSBA for acceptance. These are just some of the steps that we go through as we're going through the visioning process that leads to the educational plan. You will hear a lot about the educational plan. It is a document that is created by the town of Wakefield. It is not a document that is created by SMMA. We facilitate and help you develop that plan, but it is the plan by which the community and the school will use to go forward to make sure that we have the proper spaces in the right locations, the quantity of spaces and the size needed for the future of Wakefield. Phil, do you want to add anything to this?
Thank you. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about as part of the visioning process is facilitating the discussion of you establishing priorities and goals, hopes and dreams for the school and for the community. It's going to be about understanding the educational culture of Wakefield and understanding from you the strengths and challenges and opportunities of both the school and the community. You know, it will also help you learn about what's going on in educational facilities across the country, and certainly a discussion of the impacts of COVID, both on the process and design.
Thank you, Phil. Next slide, please, Shane. So as I mentioned, working with David Stephen from New Vista Design, we're going to host a series of virtual, hybrid, and in-person. We want to meet as many people as possible, meet where you want to meet how you can meet, and make sure that we hear your voice. So there will be, through the website, advertised lots of opportunities for engagement, lots of minutes and recordings of every meeting. We will record them and post it on the website. So if you cannot be in person or cannot make it to a virtual meeting, you can watch it afterwards and stay involved. And David uses a tool that we can do real-time polling, so we can hear from people who are involved in the meetings, whether they're involved virtually or in person, so that we can understand what your feedback is in real time. So we're excited to get that going, and we'll start to get some information up on the website about when those are and how you can get involved. Next slide, please, Shane. Phil.
Yeah, and so part of the activities, Lorraine mentioned the evaluation of the existing building structurally and mechanically and so on, but we're also going to do an evaluation of the existing building and its ability to serve what we refer to as next generation teaching and learning, and what are the components of the building, and are they adaptable? Can they be renovated, or what parts of them can be renovated? We need to understand the curriculum and educational processes of Wakefield High School and what might be envisioned for the future. And in the programming process, as Lorraine mentioned, we'll meet with teachers and staff and students. What this slide is doing is showing on the left how your current building was designed, the ideology around the how the building was designed. Teacher-centric, passive learning, conventional technology, subject-based, and although we haven't spoken with your educators yet, we will. I'm sure that you have been moving in the direction of, maybe have arrived at the goals listed in the right column. But very often what we find is that the building is getting in the way. The building creates obstacles to be able to achieve the goals identified in the right column. So that's part of this process of understanding what's needed and how to move forward. And so this process will all be part of the feasibility study, but we as planners will continue to with interviews into the future through all stages of design to make sure that at each stage of design, the next level of information to get the building right is discussed openly with educators and students and parents and so on. So looking forward to getting underway, and that's, as Lorraine said, that's going to start very shortly.
Thank you, Phil. Next slide, please, Shane.
Yeah, so as Phil and Lorraine are talking about, I mean, our goal is to develop a dialogue with the Wakefield community where voices are heard, responded to, and reflected in the design of the new Wakefield Memorial High School. We will work in partnership with all the key stakeholders, the educators, students, parents, town leaders, people who know and care about Wakefield and its future. An important piece of this will happen in the school with the students, teachers, and administration, as Phil and Lorraine have been discussing. However, it's important for us to continue to reach out beyond the walls of the school and engage with the whole community, as we are doing this evening. So one of the ways we will communicate with you is through a project website. It's already up and running. Plan to keep an organized data related to the process of the design, making sure the information is accessible to everyone. You can go to the next slide. So engagement will be frequent, but also appropriately timed in relation to the project schedule, which Shane will get into detail on later, as well as the community calendar. There may be town-wide events where setting up a table and meeting people, discussing the project, getting input will make some sense. However, meanwhile, we've learned a lot in this year plus of COVID, having to rely upon digital means of communication. Community meetings on our projects actually have been better attended when the need to travel or find childcare for parents of young children has been removed. Digital literacy has grown in most communities, and we believe that a hybrid approach to engagement, meeting people where they are, will result in the most inclusive approach. That way, when the day of the debt exclusion vote arrives, the project is well known by the community that's being asked to support the project with its tax dollars. Next slide.
So I wanted to, Matt and I were going to spend some moments discussing with you the ideas for what could be. And I hope Lorraine made it clear these are not ideas to pick from yet. We'll get there. But just really our initial take about what could be. All these ideas will present you with a 21st century high school. It will be complete with outdoor spaces to learn, gather, and play. We know that MSBA process will guide us to explore addition renovation, new construction, and new site options. But these ideas are just an initial take at what those could be. So we hope they spark discussion, excitement, enthusiasm. So the next slide is the home renewed idea. It's the addition renovation idea. It preserves portions of the existing building. It infills the courtyard. It includes new addition spaces. It needs phased construction, and for site, it's careful consideration of logistics, siting modular classrooms, keeping construction activity separate from the school activity, maintaining safe and functional arrival and dismissal.
And really with this addition renovation option, there's a lot of poetry in terms of the potential of the building. We really have the opportunity to transform the existing Wakefield Memorial into something completely new. It's intentional that it's potentially tough to recognize the existing pieces of the building because we do want the feeling of a completely new facility overall. There are key pieces that we would look to maintain, high value assets like the field house, and the general relationship here to Farm Street in terms of how you come in. But the courtyard in this particular instance really becomes inverted and filled in with a dining common space that can expand out to an outdoor courtyard space and then eventually lead down to the Beasley Oval. It can take advantage of the grade change that happens to really create a set of bleachers and create a promenade that can connect the site all the way through and really achieve some of the potential that we see in the existing site as it's configured, really using the existing building as an armature to make that happen.
The second idea is what we're calling here the model of education. It shows our approved model school, Grafton High School, sited behind the existing school. That means it's minimal disruption to the existing facility and students while the new building is constructed.
So the new building that we're showing here, again, as Erin just mentioned, is a model school. It's our model school that is approved by the MSBA from Grafton High School. And it happens to just fit very nicely on the location of the Beasley Oval, though we understand that is a very high value asset, again, for the overall community. There's been some very recent investment there. So the concept of putting it there is something that we would want to talk through, obviously, with the overall community to understand the process there. But seeing that opportunity, understanding the benefits that come with pursuing the model school option in the MSBA program. There's some schedule savings that are available to us, though we do need to do some careful examination of the program that comes out of the ed planning process to make sure it aligns with the model school because it is fairly fixed in terms of the facility that would be available.
And the third idea we presented is called the Woven Campus. It's a complete and reimagined campus for the school and community. The new school will be built on the Walsh field and Dobbin tennis courts while the existing school remains in operation. And then once the school transitions from the old facility to the new facility, the Wellness Quad emerges beside the Beasley Oval with the new baseball diamond, tennis courts. This plan shows, outdoor play areas for kids, basketball courts and whatnot.
And so the new building in this particular scheme really tries to integrate itself into the larger campus in terms of its form. The front entry to the building here, where again, a very welcoming open dining common space would reside, really looks to interact with that entry drop-off circle. And then the building form would sort of grow beyond that behind it. Here also proposing to use some of the model school forms and massing in the organization just to be able to understand that the building really can fit in that area. I think that's the main challenge or consideration to think about this particular spot. Can we fit the building program, and can we also make sure that it has sufficient space around it for service and all the sort of functional needs of the building that it has.
Thank you, guys. So just moving on to schedule. As I said, we've just brought our designers on board, SMMA, and we're happy to have them on board. We're going to start setting up some meetings. Some of those will be with the school, some with the Permanent Building Committee, and we'll have a lot of public meetings and more of these types of public presentations as we go into the feasibility study. Some of the key dates, that first submission that I mentioned at the start of the presentation tonight, the PDP, we are looking to submit that to the MSBA for their review early in the new year, January 5th of 2022. While MSBA are reviewing that, we'll continue to work on the project, moving straight into the preferred schematic report. We'll get that into MSBA on March 3rd. That is a hard date, March 3rd. On which we have to submit the PSR in order to go to the MSBA board meeting on April 27th. MSBA dictate those dates, so those are hard dates that we will be pushing to achieve and submit on time for the board meeting. Going to that board meeting on April 27th, hopefully get approval on a preferred schematic design, and that will allow us to move straight into schematic design, which is where we take one scheme and we start looking at that in detail, putting that together to bring back to the MSBA, submit that on September 1st in time for their board meeting on October 26th. At that October 26th board meeting, that is when we will get a project funding and scope agreement with MSBA, and that will dictate and that will set the scope of the project, the cost of the project, and what the MSBA will reimburse the town for the entire project. So by October, we'll know what the project is, how much it is, and what we need to do to move forward into the district voting, which will be happening sometime in November. We've plugged in November 17th. I think your town meeting happens around the 2nd or 3rd week of November. So November of 2022 is when we will bring this project to the town to vote to approve the entire project coming out of our feasibility study to allow us to move into the detailed design and construction for the new Wakefield Memorial High School. Yeah, this is just a graphic of that schedule. We show the feasibility study, the board approval in April of 2022, going into schematic design. Again, the MSBA board meeting and approval in October of 2022. Town funding November, December of 22, which will allow us to go into that detailed design. Once the project is approved, the detailed design will take about 12 months to do, to allow the designers to put together bid documents, which will go out to contractors with to get a price to build this school. And then sometime in late 23, early 24, we'll move into construction. We're showing about a 2-year construction period here. That's just a draft today, depending on what the scheme we ultimately go with, whether it's a renovation or new build. SMMA's team talked a little bit about a model school, which will save some time on the schedule, but we do hope to have the school open for September of 2025, and that's certainly our goal right now, but that could change depending on the outcome of the feasibility and the schematic design and the scope that is approved by MSBA in April of 2022. So that's our presentation tonight. I hope it was informative. We're certainly here to answer any questions that you have. I think the folks from WCAT are going to moderate any questions, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think if you don't want to raise your hand and ask them, I think there is also a function where you can type a question. Tom
We don't have anything yet.
Okay. Tom Stapleton, I think you're on mute.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Tom Stapleton, and I have a scenario that was presented last year or so that I'm remembering, and it pretty much falls in line with the Woven campus idea. What I'd like to present is building the campus on Walsh Field. And as far as the current building goes, where the field house is, there's actually two. If you look at the rear of the building, you'll see one side is older than the other. Well, the new side is probably the side that's given them most of the problems. So with the build out on Walsh Field, putting a raised walkway into the field house. So you see, and that opens up that area, and that leaves that whole area there, the field house, the weight room, the room for judo and so on like that, and the right side where WCAT is, to keep that in place. And then with the existing building, the one that they're going to, at the end of that line, they'll take that building down, and take that whole process down, and they'll be able to put in fields, baseball fields, you have your softball field there and so on. So that's a scenario that I think would work pretty well. It would also, like it was mentioned, there would be very little disruption for the students. And also it may be a cost savings because you're not getting rid of the field house, which was a costly investment too, just a few years back. So it's an idea that I thought I'd bring up, and some of it actually falls in line with some of the ideas that you've made possible here.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, we'll certainly be looking at all options, and I know there was, I think in the previous, the pre-feasibility study, I think there was an option similar to that also with the previous designer. So we'll certainly take that on board and give it some consideration.
Thank you.
Shane, we have one question, actually a comment. Somebody is saying, will you be having a table at the Festival by the Lake in October or one at the farmer's market this year? It would be good to get a way to get the word out with the community.
I certainly will look at that. We had a meeting today where we're going to start plugging in dates for some of these public events, forums, getting out to the community, to the farmers market and the Lake Festival. So certainly we'll work with the school to see when that is, and if it's not too soon, we'll try and get to that. But it is certainly our intention to get out there to as many public events as we can to get the word out, get the information out on the project.
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Joe.
Great. It sounded like there was two dates, one in January, one in March, where you present options. Is there, you presenting one option in January and then a final option in March? Or does the town and the public have any say in which options you present? Or tell me a little more about the process. Do you go with all options?
Yes, if I can share my screen, I'll go back to that slide. So the first submission to MSBA is the PDP. That's the one we'll submit on January 5th. So between now and January 5th, we'll have a number of meetings with the Permanent Building Committee. We'll have more public meetings. So that's when we're going to look at options. And we don't know how many options it's going to be. It's going to be somewhere between 8 and 12, maybe 13, 14 even, but somewhere between 8 and 12 options. That's when we have to look at, just renovating the building. MSBA requires us to look at just renovating the building. If you were to bring that building up to code, we'll look at, renovating and putting addition on it. We'll look at new construction on the Welsh Field, on the Oval, and anywhere else we can fit it. So we'll have 8 to 14 options for the PDP, and we'll be presenting those throughout the PDP phase before we submit it on January 5th. Coming out of that, if we have 14 options, we may narrow that down to 5 options that we want to review in more detail. So between January 5th and March 3rd, when we make the PSR submission, we'll look at that in more detail. We'll present those again to the community, and sometime around March 3rd, we'll vote to pick one option that we're recommending to MSBA as the scheme for the school, and that we further investigate during schematic design. So you know, the way I like to look at it sometimes is the PDP is the participants, the PSR is maybe the semi-finalists, and then the schematic is the finalists. So we'll have options, but they'll be reduced at the end of each of those submissions to MSBA till we ultimately get to a schematic design, and that's the one option that we bring forward to the board and to the town for funding approval in November, December of 22.
That's great. Thank you very much for the explanation. It's exciting. Thank you.
I guess usually once you start with a couple, we get lots and lots. It's a quiet group tonight.
Mr. Andy Bray, you may unmute.
Thanks very much. Shane, I wonder, could you just comment a little bit more about what the decision-making looks like on those options under the PSR? How does the narrowing happen? I know you said you vote on it. Is that the building project committee votes on it, or?
Ultimately, it'll be the permanent building committee will be the voting authority on this. We have a combined permanent building committee and a school building committee. The permanent building committee, I think, is 11 or 12 members, and then the school building committee is about 25 members. So there's over 35 people on the review committee, if you like, but the permanent building committee is the ultimate voting authority. You know, as we go through the process, we'll be meeting. We'll probably get up to a point where we're meeting with the permanent building committee every other week, as well as, you know, our focus groups and our leadership groups will meet every week. And we'll put together a matrix, you know, and that matrix could be made up of 15, 20, 25 different criteria that will rank each option on. Some options will, you know, rank high in a certain criteria. Some options will rank low in a criteria. So through that process, we'll look at what the best options are, and through a process of elimination, and also through a process of just picking the best options for the town. We'll be able to narrow those down at the end of the PDP stage, and then again at the end of the PSR stage, and be able to make a recommendation for the scheme that goes into schematic design. But it is it's an interactive process, and we look at everything from, you know, the site, the soil conditions, the wetlands, traffic, parking, the education vision, and we'll look at the cost, the schedule, the need to bring in temporary facilities if we're doing a renovation addition building versus not having to do that if we can build somewhere else on the site. Disruption during construction, if we were to build on the oval and we had to take that away for a period, if we took away the fields, the Walsh field for a period. So there'll be a long list of criteria that we'll evaluate and narrow those options down based on.
Thanks very much.
I will also say there'll be plenty of opportunity for the public to weigh in on all the options as well.
Michelle Bachman has a question. You may unmute.
Hi, I had a question about the schedule, particularly if you could speak to some of the typical roadblocks or risks that you've seen on other similar projects that might impact that schedule, that we can just kind of plan for ahead of time.
Certainly, we're just looking at the feasibility and schematic design now. Although we've shown a schedule out through detailed design and construction, we'll talk a little bit about the feasibility, which is all we're approved to do by the town and by the MSBA. You know, decisions, we're going to make decisions, and we're going to need decisions made, and we're going to get the information out there as quickly as we can. We're going to make sure it's detailed information. We're going to make sure that we report the facts, so we can make informed decisions, bring those to the Permanent Building Committee to approve different schemes. You know, one thing that we've seen, you know, in the last 16 or 18 months with the situation with COVID, is some things have slowed down a bit. The dates for the PSR submission and the schematic submission are dates set by MSBA. Once we do submit those documents to MSBA, they go through a pretty rigorous review period. And if that review is delayed any, that can hold us up. Unfortunately, MSBA board only meets every other month. So they only meet 6 times a year. So if for some reason we weren't able to meet one of those submission dates with the MSBA, and we didn't meet one of the board meetings that we've scheduled, that pushes everything out 2 months. So that's really, you know, I think that's one of the biggest risks, is that, you know, we work at the pace of government. The MSBA has struggled a little bit this year to review things, just because they're not in the office. They've been out. These are huge submissions, probably, you know, 300, 400, 500 pages each. When we get to schematic design, there's maybe, you know, 200 drawings, 250 drawings. So there's a lot of review period to do. But we're certainly confident we can hit those dates, get the information out, report the facts, and meet the milestones that MSBA have dictated.
I might add, Shane, just, you know, this is a very important project, and it's a very important decision. And, you know, we will work with the building committee and the administration and move as fast as slow, or as slow as need be, so that the community has input, so the building committee is confident in the decisions made. Once this project is approved at schematic design, there is no changing of the project. So, you know, if we approve an addition renovation, it's not going to change to a new building. If we approve a new building, it's not going to change to an addition renovation. So we understand how critical the alternative analysis is, the option development is. And as I said, we will move as fast or as slow as need be, so the community, the building committee, and the school administration feel confident in the decisions you make.
I think there's a question there that somebody typed. Are you aligning the project with the vocational school project? Are you tracking the increased housing development and determining the school size? So we're not aligning the project with the VOTEC, and we will certainly collaborate with them. I believe they just submitted their schematic design to MSBA in the last few weeks. So they're probably you know, a year and a half ahead of us. There certainly will be some collaboration with the folks up there, but we won't be aligning as such with their project. In terms of the tracking the increased housing development and determining the school size, the design enrollment has been agreed with MSBA. It's going to be, the school is going to be designed to accommodate 1,000 students. That's something that's done prior to being invited into the feasibility study. It was done in what's called the eligibility study. So in that was done with the Permanent Building Committee and the school department. They do look at housing development. They look at population increases over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years when they come to that. So that has been considered in the design enrollment for what we're going to construct the school in. And then based on that design enrollment, we use a template from the MSBA, which will determine the size of the school. It will determine the number of classrooms, it will determine the size of the gymnasium, it will determine the size of the cafeteria, number of science rooms, and other spaces in the building. So that's all going to be determined on that design enrollment that's already been approved by the town, the school department, and the MSBA. I see another one there. Is there any option to consider a pool or an ice rink as part of the project, or is this not feasible? I would say I think it's probably not feasible. MSBA will under no circumstance reimburse any costs for a pool or an ice rink. They may not even participate in the project if we propose a pool or an ice rink in it. Although we can look at it, I think that a pool or an ice rink will quickly be seen as not feasible and won't continue through any of the options. Anybody else?
Shane, I'm not seeing anything on my side either.
All right. Maybe if there's nothing else, Joe or Doug, did you want to say anything before we maybe close out? Give people another chance to ask a question.
No, I think we would welcome anyone if they were unable to attend tonight, or if they have questions. We would encourage you to reach out to Joe Bertrand, the chair of the Permanent Building Committee, or to reach out directly at central office.
Sure.
We will do our best to get your questions answered. If we can answer them ourselves, or if need be, we can certainly get them over to Shane Nolan and Lorraine Finnegan.
Sure. There is on the project website, there is an email address where people can submit questions, and we'll certainly get those answers out to people, or bring them up with the building committee as appropriate.
And Joe Bertrand, the chairman of the Permanent Building Committee, has indicated there's going to be ample opportunities for community members to be involved in this project all throughout. If you wish to be involved, you will be able to be involved. Thank you.
Yeah, so please, check the website. We'll update that regularly with meeting dates. I think the next school building committee meeting is scheduled for October 7th. And I'm sure during October there'll be more public meetings also that we will post on the project website. So if that's it, just like to thank the Permanent Building Committee and the school department for helping us out tonight, and the folks from WCAT for hosting the presentation and forum tonight. Team from SMMA, we're happy for them to be on board, and we're finally going to get going with this, and hopefully we'll have more information as we move through the month of October, November. Thank you.
Thank you.